It started with a whisper of a secret I never thought I'd share, but secrets have a way of clawing their way out when they've been buried too deep. Welcome to my hidden confessions, the ones that burn in the quiet hours, the ones society says we shouldn't feel, let alone speak. If you've ever crossed a line you didn't know was there, or felt a pull toward something forbidden, stay with me. This is where we lay it bare. I never imagined I'd be spilling this, but here we are. My name's Jordan, and back then I was 21, fresh out of community college, crashing back at home while figuring out my next move. My mom's new husband, Greg, came with baggage, his son, Liam, who was 20 and a total enigma. We'd been thrown together under the same roof for about 2 years since the wedding, but we might as well have been strangers. Liam was the brooding type, always holed up in his room with his guitar, strumming melodies that echoed through the walls like distant thunder. He smelled like fresh pine from his hikes, and a hint of that cheap cologne he splashed on before heading out. We exchanged grunts in the hallway, maybe a forced laugh at family dinners, but that was it. No deep talks, no bonding, just coexistence. That all changed the weekend my mom and Greg jetted off for some anniversary getaway. They left us in charge of the house, which really meant don't burn it down. The place felt massive without them, echoey, almost haunted by the silence. No plans, no distractions. Liam and I ended up in the den that first night, sprawled on the oversized sectional, binge-watching some thriller series on streaming. A massive fleece blanket draped over us both, warding off the chill from the AC. He was in his usual getup, baggy black joggers and a faded band tee that hung loose on his lean frame. I tried not to notice how his knee kept nudging mine under the fabric, or how his elbow grazed my side when he shifted. It was nothing, right? Just two guys chilling. But midway through episode 3, something shifted. He let out a soft sigh and tilted his head onto my shoulder, light as a feather like it was no big deal. I went rigid, my pulse spiking. He didn't pull away, didn't explain. Just rested there, his hair tickling my neck. Then, slowly, his arm draped across my torso. Casual, almost lazy, like we'd done this 1,000 times. My breath caught. His chest pressed against my side, warm and solid. And that's when I felt it. His arousal, unmistakable, straining against my thigh through the thin layers. Firm, insistent. No mistaking it for anything else. I should have shoved him off. Laughed it away as a joke. But I didn't. Instead, a strange heat bloomed in my chest, curiosity mingling with something deeper, lonelier. I stayed frozen, but not repulsed, not even close. If anything, it stirred something in me I'd never acknowledged. His breathing deepened against my skin, his fingers curling slightly into my shirt. The TV droned on, but I barely registered it. Time blurred, could have been minutes or an hour. Then, in a voice barely above a murmur, he said, "You're comfortable." It came out husky, vulnerable, like a confession he hadn't planned. That broke the spell, or maybe ignited it. The air thickened, charged with unspoken questions. What the hell was this? We weren't blood, but we were family. Step-family, sure, but still. The rest of the night dissolved into a haze. He didn't release me right away. We lingered in that embrace, bodies aligned, hearts sinking in rhythm. When the episode ended, he finally eased back, avoiding my eyes. "Night," he muttered, disappearing upstairs. I sat there alone, replaying every second, the press of him, the whisper, the way my body responded without permission. Sleep evaded me that night. My mind raced, guilt warring with an inexplicable thrill. Why didn't I stop it? Why did it feel right? Morning came too soon. I dragged myself downstairs, the scent of toasted bagels pulling me in. Liam was at the island, shirtless, his toned back to me as he poured orange juice. His joggers hung low on his hips, revealing the dimples at the base of his spine. He turned, flashing a casual grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Sup," he said, like the night before was a dream I'd invented. I mumbled a response, busying myself with coffee to avoid staring. But the tension was palpable, a humming undercurrent. Our glances lingered too long. Every accidental brush of hands felt electric. "You crash all right?" he asked, leaning against the counter, arms crossed over his chest. Yeah, fine. You? He shrugged, his gaze flicking over me. Weird dreams. Kept waking up. I wanted to probe. What kind? About what? But the words stuck. Instead, I joked, probably from hogging the blanket. His lips quirked. Could have fought me for it. Or just joined in. My stomach twisted. He held my stare, bold yet soft, like he was testing waters. I broke first, turning to the fridge. But as he passed me to grab a plate, his shoulder grazed mine. Deliberate, I swear. The day dragged like that. Loaded silences, near misses. We'd bump into each other in the hallway, our bodies lingering in the space too long. He blasted music from his room, but I'd catch him watching me through the crack in the door. By afternoon, we were back in the den, pretending to game on the console. Close on the couch, controllers in hand, but focus shattered. His foot nudged mine. I didn't move it. That evening, the house felt smaller, the walls closing in. He knocked on my doorframe around midnight, uninvited but not unwelcome. I was in bed, mindlessly scrolling social media, trying to drown out the echoes of last night. Can't sleep? He asked, stepping in without waiting for an invite. He flopped onto the edge of my mattress, wearing just boxers now, the fabric clinging in ways that made my throat dry. Nah, you? He shook his head, eyes tracing the room before landing on me. Wanna watch something? Downstairs is too quiet. I nodded, and we migrated back to the couch. Same blanket, same setup. But this time, no pretense. He tugged it over us, his body scooting closer until our sides touched. The TV flickered to life, but it was background noise. His hand found mine under the covers, fingers intertwining tentatively. I didn't pull away. Emboldened, his palm slid to my knee, then higher, resting on my inner thigh. Warmth radiated from his touch, sending sparks up my spine. You gonna tell me to back off? He whispered, his breath hot against my ear. I swallowed hard, voice failing. His face inched closer, lips ghosting my cheek, not a kiss, but a promise. Liam, I managed, half protest, half plea. Just say the word, he replied, his grip firming. But I couldn't, because in that suspended moment the world narrowed to us, the forbidden pull, the raw need. His free hand cupped my neck, thumb stroking my jaw. We hovered there, inches apart, until his mouth brushed mine. Soft at first, exploratory, then deeper, tongues tentative, tasting the unknown. We didn't go further that night. No frenzy, no regrets in the heat. Just exploration, hands roaming over clothed bodies, breaths mingling, discovering contours we'd ignored for years. We fell asleep entwined, his head on my chest, my arms around him, like puzzle pieces finally slotting together. Dawn broke, and reality crept in. I woke to an empty bed. Wait, no, we'd moved upstairs at some point? Memories blurred. Downstairs, Liam was in the kitchen, frying eggs in nothing but shorts. He looked up, a shy smile breaking through. Hungry? We ate in companionable silence, but the air crackled. About last night, I started. He set his fork down. Regrets? I hesitated. No, you? His eyes softened. Hell no. Felt real. The day unfolded with newfound ease. Laughs over breakfast, shared chores that turned into playful shoves. But under it, desire simmered. By evening, we were back under the blanket, TV forgotten. This time, he initiated boldly, straddling my lap, hands framing my face. Tell me if it's too much, he murmured. It wasn't. Kisses turned heated, shirts discarded. Skin on skin, exploring with fingers, lips, breaths. He ground against me, eliciting gasps. We crossed lines, mutual release, whispered names, bodies arching in sync. No full consummation, but close enough to shatter illusions. The weekend blurred into a haze of intimacy. Mornings tangled in sheets, afternoons stealing touches in the backyard, nights pushing boundaries further. Hands everywhere, mouths mapping uncharted territory. We talked, too, about hidden crushes, lonely nights, the fear of what this meant. Stepbrothers? Society would freak. But in our bubble, it was us against the world. When our parents returned, we snapped back to normalcy, or tried. Stolen glances across the dinner table, secret brushes in the hall. But that weekend had ignited something unbreakable. We carried on in shadows, nights slipping into each other's rooms, building a world of our own. Guilt faded. Passion endured, and in the quiet I knew. Some secrets are worth keeping, if only to feel alive. I never thought living with my best friend from college would turn into this. We'd been roommates for 2 years now, ever since graduation dumped us both into the real world with crappy jobs and a shared apartment in the city. His name was Ryan, tall, messy dark hair, always wearing those faded band tees and sweatpants like he couldn't be bothered with the world. Me? I'm Chris, the one who overthinks everything, the guy who keeps the fridge stocked and pays the bills on time. We were opposites in a lot of ways, but that's what made it work. Or at least it did until that one night when everything shifted. It started innocently enough. We'd had a rough week. Ryan's job at the graphic design firm was stressing him out with endless deadlines, and I'd just bombed a presentation at my marketing gig. We crashed on the couch after splitting a pizza, binge-watching some dumb action flick to unwind. The room was dim, lit only by the TV's glow, and the air smelled like greasy pepperoni and stale beer from the cans scattered on the coffee table. Ryan was slouched next to me, his head lolling back, eyes half closed. I noticed he seemed off, quieter than usual, like something was eating at him. "You good, man?" I asked, nudging his shoulder with mine. He didn't answer right away. Just stared at the screen for a beat too long. Then without warning, he shifted closer, his shoulder pressing into mine. "Chris, can I just hug you or something?" Sounds stupid, but I need it. I laughed it off at first, thinking he was joking. "What, like a bro hug?" "Sure, come here." I opened my arms awkwardly, expecting a quick side squeeze. But Ryan didn't do that. He leaned in fully, wrapping his arms around my waist, pulling himself against me. His head rested on my chest, and I could feel his breath warm through my shirt. It wasn't a bro hug, it was real tight, like he was holding on for dear life. Ryan?" I said, my voice muffled against his hair. My arms hovered for a second, before I let them settle around his shoulders. He didn't move, just burrowed deeper, his body relaxing into mine. We sat like that for minutes, the movie droning on in the background, explosions and gunfire that felt a million miles away. I could smell his shampoo, something citrusy and familiar, and feel the steady thump of his heart against my ribs. "This feels good," he murmured finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "Just being held." I don't know why, I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to crack a joke, lighten the mood, but something in his tone stopped me. It was vulnerable, raw, like he'd been carrying this weight alone for too long. So I just nodded, my chin brushing the top of his head, and let my fingers trace lazy circles on his back. We stayed like that until the credits rolled, neither of us pulling away. When he finally sat up, his eyes were a little glassy, but he smiled faintly. "Thanks, man. Needed that." "No problem," I replied, trying to play it cool even as my own heart raced. He stood up, stretched, and headed to his room without another word. I sat there for a while after, staring at the blank screen, wondering what the hell that was about. It wasn't weird exactly, just intense. And yeah, I'd felt him against me, the warmth of his body, but I pushed the thought away. We were friends, roommates, nothing more. The next day was business as usual. Ryan acted like nothing had happened, joking over coffee, complaining about work, stealing the last of my cereal. We bumped shoulders in the kitchen, laughed about stupid memes on our phones. But every time our eyes met, there was this lingering something, like an unspoken question hanging in the air. I caught myself watching him more, noticing the way his shirt rode up when he reached for something on a high shelf, or how his laugh lit up his whole face. It was confusing as hell, but I shoved it down. That night I couldn't sleep. The apartment was too quiet, the city noise outside a distant hum. I tossed and turned, my mind replaying that hug over and over. Around midnight I heard footsteps in the hall, then a soft knock on my door. "Chris, you awake?" Yeah, I called back, sitting up. The door creaked open, and there was Ryan silhouetted in the hallway light. He was shirtless, just in his boxers, his hair tousled like he'd been tossing around too. Can't sleep either? He shook his head, stepping inside without waiting for an invite. Mind if I... He gestured vaguely toward the bed. I scooted over, my pulse picking up. Sure. He climbed in beside me, but instead of lying down flat, he hesitated, then swung a leg over, straddling my hips carefully. His hands rested on my chest for balance, and I froze, my breath catching. Ryan, what? I'm not going to do anything, he said quickly, his voice low and shaky. Just let me sit here for a bit, please. I stared up at him, his face half-shadowed, eyes wide and pleading. There was no aggression, no push, just need. I nodded slowly, and he lowered himself, his body pressing against mine. Chest to chest, hips to hips. His head tucked into the curve of my neck, and I could feel every inch of him. Warm, solid, real. And yeah, he was hard. So was I, the friction unavoidable, but neither of us moved. We just breathed, synced up in the quiet. After a while, his voice broke the silence, muffled against my skin. Do you hate this? Hate me for it? No, I whispered, my hand sliding up his back instinctively. His muscles tensed under my touch, then relaxed. And then I felt it, wetness on my neck. He was crying, silent tears that soaked into my collarbone. Ryan! I don't know what's wrong with me, he choked out. I need this, need to feel close to someone. Nothing's wrong, I said, holding him tighter. We're good. We're figuring it out. We stayed like that for what felt like hours. No grinding, no escalation, just holding. Eventually, he lifted his head, eyes red-rimmed but steady. I want to kiss you, he said, plain as day. My heart slammed against my ribs. It was the most direct thing he'd ever said. No games, no jokes. I searched his face, saw the honesty there, and something in me clicked. Then kiss me. He leaned down slow, our lips brushing tentatively at first. Soft, exploratory. Then deeper, his hands cupping my face, foreheads pressed together. It wasn't frantic. It was careful, like we were both afraid to break it. We kissed for minutes, breaths mingling, bodies still aligned but unmoving beyond that. When we pulled back, he rested his head on my chest again, and we fell asleep tangled up, the world outside forgotten. Morning came too soon. I woke to the smell of coffee brewing. Ryan was in the kitchen, flipping pancakes like it was any other Saturday. He slid a plate in front of me with a grin. Eat up before they get cold. I couldn't help smiling back, the warmth from last night still lingering. These look good. You add chocolate chips? Figured you'd like that. He sat across from me, digging in, but his eyes kept flicking to mine, soft and knowing. We didn't talk about the kiss, the way our bodies had fit together, or the tears, but it was there in the air, making everything feel easier, lighter. The day passed in a blur. Errands, a quick gym session together, takeout for dinner. We laughed more, touched more casually, a hand on the shoulder, a nudge in the ribs. That night I was in bed early reading on my phone when another knock came. Come in. Ryan entered, same outfit as before, boxers, no shirt. He crawled onto the bed without a word, lying beside me on his side. After a minute, he spoke, voice hesitant. Can I ask you something? Shoot, if I got hard again, would you let me finish? Here with you? The question hung heavy, but not in a crude way. It was vulnerable, like he was baring his soul. I turned to face him. You mean like jerk off? Yeah, he swallowed, eyes on the sheets. I don't want to be alone for it. Not tonight. My chest tightened, not from disgust, but from the raw honesty. This wasn't just physical. It was emotional, a plea for connection. Yeah, I said softly. You can, he exhaled, rolling onto his back. His hand slipped under the waistband, movements slow and deliberate. I felt his other hand seek mine, fingers intertwining. I held on tight, staring at the ceiling to give him space, but the sounds, his quiet breaths, the subtle shifts, filled the room. "Can I think about you?" he whispered. "Yeah," I replied, my voice thick. "I am too." His grip tightened, breaths quickening until a soft moan escaped him. It wasn't performative. It was real, releasing something pent up. When he finished, he turned toward me, eyes shining. That felt right, for the first time. I pulled him close, his head on my shoulder, and we drifted off like that, limbs entwined. But the next morning, I woke alone. The bed was cold on his side. I padded downstairs, heart sinking when I saw his duffel bag by the door. Ryan was in the kitchen, zipping up his jacket, keys in hand. "Where you headed?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Back to my folks' place for a bit," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Need some space because of last night?" He paused, shoulders tense. "It meant something, Chris, too much. Then stay." "Talk about it." He shook his head, finally looking at me, eyes full of conflict. "If I stay, I'll want more. More holding, more everything. And I'll screw it up." "Ruin us." "You won't," I insisted, stepping closer. "This feels real. That's why it's scary." He grabbed his bag, heading for the door. Paused there, back to me.
"You're the only one who's ever made me feel okay like this."
"Okay being me. Then don't go." He hesitated, hand on the knob. "I'd break it eventually." And with that he left. No embrace, no final words, just the click of the door. I stood in the empty apartment, the silence deafening. The ghost of his touch lingered, his weight on me, his tears, his kiss. I'd never felt more connected to anyone. I stood in the empty apartment, the silence deafening. The ghost of his touch lingered, his weight on me, his tears, his kiss. I'd never felt more connected to anyone or more shattered. Days turned to weeks, and I still slept on my side of the bed, leaving his empty, hoping for a knock that never came. If you've ever fallen for someone you weren't supposed to, you get it. The ache doesn't fade. It just becomes part of you.